Welcome everybody. This is John Manna from CDW. We're going to do a little housekeeping here, get things started. This is going to be a great event in terms of sharing a bunch of content with you, showing you some stuff live in demo form. So we're real excited to bring this to you today. And I'll tee it up first by just sharing, because of the size of the folks that we've, size of the attendance that we've got today, we do have everybody on mute. But we are welcoming questions in chat throughout the session. What we'll do is kind of take a look at those questions as we go, and then towards the end, wrap up on hitting some of the top ones. And then, of course, following the session, if we haven't gotten to your question, we'll follow up separately with you as well. So please ask questions in the chat, and we look forward to interacting with you there. So first thing about this event in the session, it is a kickoff to a series of educational workshops that CDW is doing, and we are absolutely, excited to kick it off with the Quebec release, top 5 new features. And the team will share with you later. It was tough for us to really get this down to 5. We're even going to share a sneak peek for you of some that didn't make the list just because we didn't have the time. So this is a series of educational workshops. We've got other ones that are going to be scheduled that we look inviting you to. One of the ones coming up next is around CMDB and asset management. And we're also going to reach out to you and see what other topics you might be interested in. So as far as the questions themselves, put them in the Q&A. We'll keep an eye on those. But for now, let's go ahead and take a look at the agenda as we kick things off today. So welcome. Done that already, although I'll introduce myself formally. John Manna. I'm here as part of the CDW team that focuses exclusively on ServiceNow. It's a pretty large team and it's growing quickly, and we're excited about the presence here at CDW. ServiceNow just recently announced their #1 elite partner for the Americas, and it was CDW, and we're just excited to kind of carry that and with that, take the experience we have and share as much of that as we can with our customers. So these types of events, completely educational. This is not a sales event. We're here to share some information and hopefully help you get more out of ServiceNow. And that's the recurring theme. How can we get more out of what we already own with the ServiceNow platform? And we're going to start off by looking at the new features here in Quebec. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Paul Schofield. He'll introduce himself. He'll take us for the first part of this session, focused on some of the top 5 items. And Paul, it's over to you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. So I'm Paul Schofield. I am a technical architect for the ServiceNow Solutions R&D team here at CDW. Today, I'm going to be reviewing the AI search features and functionality. All right, so first things first, AI search is, if you're familiar with ServiceNow and you're familiar with the current search capabilities, it uses a Zing search. ServiceNow's AI search replaces that Zing search and is available in your service portal, on your mobile or in your virtual agent, and offers a really slick update without really changing around how the user interface works. Let's see that next slide, please, Bri. AI search kind of just brings together a grouping of new technologies. So we have things like the Genius results, high relevancy, question answering, contextual search, and as I mentioned, it replaces that Zing search. The really cool thing is it enables the users to get answers before they're even done answering asking the question. If you can go to the next slide, Brian. It utilizes these results and presents a visual representation of the data. Here is something that's called the View Action Mapper, which enables you to, when you get your search results back, to see the data in different visualizations. So if you have a catalog item, you'll see it a certain way compared to if maybe you were getting a user profiles response, or maybe you have an approval record. So it's really just representing the data visually for that user once they actually perform that AI search. Next slide. this slide is very busy, and really just for visual representations. We will be sending the slideshow out. But basically what this is a breakdown of that whole flow of everything that is represented in one of these cards. So it looks very busy, but if you take a look at this later, it'll show the breakdown. But again, it's just a visual representation of your results. So it's keeping your users interactive. If you have a visualization of the item, you're quicker to say, yes, this is exactly what I need. So the AI search really brings together some of that functionality.
Paul, didn't you say we were going to cover this in the quiz at the end of the presentation?
Yeah. There will be no quiz. Suddenly see the attendees list drop. So AI search, as I mentioned, it replaces the Zing search. So if you have any custom widgets that you've created with the search functionality that exists today, ServiceNow does provide a fixed script for you to quickly and easily run. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but as you can see, we've provided that in the slideshow for you as well. And now I'm going to do my demonstration. So Brian, if you can pass ownership here, I'll go ahead and share my screen. All right. As I mentioned, AI search offers a plethora of options of what you can configure, up to the genius searches. You can train them on natural language search, things like that. But what really I want to show you today is just really the outcome of how AI search works. So you'll notice the very first thing that happened when I click on this search bar, it is showing me a list of recent searches that both I performed, as well as popular searches that other users may have used. So in this demo instance, obviously there is some, probably not the best data, but somebody who uses the system often, or if you have, a large catalog of items, this is perfect because users can not only start to type. So I'm going to actually show you phishing. So I want to find. I hear about this term about phishing. I know about hacking, but what is phishing? So I'm going to write phishing. If you happen to know anything about phishing, you know that it is not spelt with an F. So AI search knows this and gives you a did you mean type search. So if you're familiar with using Google, which I'm sure you are, this search capability basically corrects your incorrectness, corrects spelling mistakes, things like that. Of course, if you really meant to search by phishing, you can search by phishing and get 0 results. However, obviously, phishing would provide you the different items. Another great thing is, I'll just show real quick, if you have a user. So let's say you had a user that you're working with, a coworker, and maybe you don't know their phone number, but you just know part of their name. So I'm going to type in good old Abe Lincoln. I'm going to get 2 results here. One, I'm going to get Abraham Lincoln, and I'm also going to get Able Tutor. These are 2 different users in the system. So this search upgrade allows you to not only look for the exact wording, but it also enables you to enter search things like maybe you have abbreviations that only your company uses. So if things are spelled out in a document or in a knowledge article, where ABC is all beings correct or something, if you have those words in the document, it'll search that for you, find your acronyms and things like that, and know that. So AI search is a very handy tool, and again, it enables you to configure any one of your almost all of your ServiceNow tables. So I think there's a couple that they leave out, things like the history tables and your audit tables, but pretty much any table in ServiceNow can be added to the AI search and indexed and included in your search results. So that is AI search.
And before we move on from there, Paul, we've got a question in the Q&A.
Oh, great.
Have you found the AI search configuration setup to be easy to follow? Or how have you found it to be easy to follow? Any tips or tricks, lessons learned, especially with highly customized portal?
Yeah, definitely. ServiceNow has been using this really awesome tool for a number of releases now called Guided Setup. AI search includes a guided setup, which enables you to go through each and every step that you need to take in order to update your current system to be able to enable UI search. So yeah, I would advise as a best practice, follow the guided setup. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us if you need any assistance configuring anything. Any other questions? All right.
There is one more. Sorry, there is
Okay.
one more.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not seeing them as they come in. So
Nope,
Andrea, you can't help me out.
that's okay.
There.
I can help. Can you use AI search to create a Q&A chatbot for users?
Yeah. Especially we provide an integration with Microsoft that we've been doing a lot lately with Microsoft Teams, where you can actually have your virtual agent chat back and forth. So if you again, let's take that same scenario where you just want to look up some users' information. You can chat with the bot to say, what's John Smith's phone number, or hey, I need my I need the password reset on this item. Or something like of that sort. So yeah, it offers it can be used in ServiceNow's virtual agent, which provides integrations to some third-party like Microsoft Teams as well as Slack. So yeah, you'll be able to set up your virtual agent and have it interact with those within ServiceNow or with one of those third-party tools.
Great, thank you.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and hand this back over to Brian so
Thank
that
you, Paul.
he can share the next section. And there you
So
go.
while thinking about that, I'm Brian Huber, also a technical architect on the R&D team with Paul. So we're tag teaming this a little here. All right, our next topic is CMDB and CSDM data synchronization. So this is quite a bit of a mouthful. Probably more accurate to say it's a data synchronization that's CSDM enabled. We'll talk a little bit more about what CSDM is. But basically, this is a feature that ServiceNow added to really help manage the data in the CMDB from really more of a framework perspective than each and every individual CI record in the database. So really trying to improve the efficiency around managing some of those attributes. Probably half of you are thinking now, what is CSDM? So let's take a couple minutes on that and we'll come back to the data sync. So CSDM is the Common Services Data Model. It's not a product or anything that you can purchase. It's really just a set of practices and recommendations that ServiceNow provides, really for two main purposes. One, to make sure that everything within the ServiceNow platform is using the CMDB consistently, and then also to provide guidance to customers as they're building out services in the CMDB to make sure that it's done in a way that can really best leverage the platform. So important points are it's standards, terms, and definitions, recommendations. It's using the out-of-the-box CMDB tables. So it's not really synchronizing from CSDM to the CMDB. It's using CSDM principles to do data synchronization in the CMDB. But the CSDM is really looking at, the data model looks at four main areas. So we've got them laid out here. It's basically design, foundation, management of the services, and selling and consuming those services. And really a lot of what happens from an operational perspective, say you're managing incidents, changes, et cetera, that's really all kind of in this technical management area. So there's probably a lot of attention spent in that particular domain. The CSDM also provides some good guidance around how to do this in really an iterative manner. So you're doing crawl, walk, run rather than trying, where do we start, right? So it gives it an approach of you can start here and build on it. So this is an example of some of the guidance in terms of where to focus in the walk stage, and basically saying you got to have some of that good foundational data that really happened kind of out in crawl. And then let's have some business applications and some of the supporting technical services. And really from a data sync perspective, we're focusing on this area down here in the technical service offering. So going back to the data sync, really two main parts of functionality that was added in Quebec. So we've got a data sync that happens at the CI class manager level. So in this example here, we've got a spot where we can say on the CI class for Windows Server, we want to specify what the management group is, and that data sync basically takes any of the Windows Server CIs and populates them with that management group. And then on a technical service offering level, we've got similar, we can define on the technical service offering what the change, managed by, and support groups are, and that's going to sync to any CIs that are associated with that in a dynamic CI group. Two important things to point out here. The class manager sync is for a specific class only. So CMDB classes can have inheritance. So for example, a Windows Server is a child class of the server class, right? So, but from a data sync level, this only happens on the specific class you specify it. So if you put it at the server level, it's only going to be specifically Windows, specific to the server class. The Windows servers wouldn't get it. So it's only at the class you specify. And then anything you specify at the technical service offering level overrides anything you had specified at the class manager level. So no, that was quite a bit there. I'll give you a quick demonstration of some of that.
And just real quick for the group, if you're going to ask questions and things like that, if you would put it in the Q&A, that way we can all see it and we can be on top of those. That would be awesome. Thanks.
So again, we got two different ways we can sync, one at the class manager level. So let's say here at the Windows Server class, there's a field added on that class screen once this loads. So we have the managed by group. So let's very creatively say that this is the Windows Server support team that's managing all of the Windows servers. So we can save that. And there's basically some background jobs that'll go ahead and run here to update that. So right now we've got the Windows Server support that's populated on all of that information. The other spot that we've got is the technical service offering sync. So this is using, I mentioned real briefly, a dynamic CI group. So this is basically just a grouping of records that you can say are associated with the technical service offering. So I'm going to go ahead and drill down into this just to give you a quick idea of what that looks like. So the CI group can either consist of saved queries. So it could be, say, everything that's in production that is part of, that has SAP in the name, for example, right? So you could have a query that has the information, or you can just manually specify the individual devices that are part of that. So right now we've got no values in there for any of those three fields. If we go to the associated technical service offering, let's go ahead and put a couple of values in here. We'll say the help desk will manage it, and the help desk is a support group. So just picking something. Example here, help desk does everything. So if I kick that job off now, this basically is set to run on a scheduled basis typically. But if we go back to that technical service offering, so we got those values specified again. We look at the corresponding CIs. That filled in those values. So nice and simple. So don't have to manage it on a device by device basis. It gives you a little bit more consistency across your CMDB. We got any questions on that?
Yeah, Brian, we had a few questions come in.
We could probably spend
you-
a couple hours on the CSDM, so we might have to pick and choose.
Yeah, and spoiler alert for everybody, one of our next topics is actually going to be CMDB and CSDM. So any questions that maybe are or more engineered for that, we will definitely get into those, and we'll actually probably use some of them for some of the content too. So make sure you join. We will be announcing that at the end of the session. But can we sync other fields like criticality from apps to the underpinning CIs, et cetera?
Well, so from ServiceNow perspective, anything's possible, right? So, but that's not a feature that's specifically added in this release. I would expect to see more functionality coming in that sync, other attributes that you can sync, and other parts of the data model that you can do syncing from.
And then we had a couple more. Can you, oh, I think that was the same one. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
This one I definitely think is for the later topic, but if you have a quick, maybe two-second answer. Have you encountered any issues with using technical services with CMDB relationships not being populated?
I have not run into much there. It's probably important to point for this data sync perspective. The data sync is only happening through that dynamic CI group, so it's not using other relationships to the technical service offering, at least currently.
Great. I will. I'll take this question, and again on our next webinar, we'll see if we can address that one as well.
Sounds good.
Outside of the topic of this one, obviously. Perfect.
All right. I'll hand this back over to Paul for UI Builder.
I must say, Brian, I was impressed how you got the CSDM and CMDB abbreviations correct each time. I was impressed. All right. Oh, here we go. So UI Builder. UI Builder is a WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. Web user interface builder. So it's new since I believe Paris, but UI for the Now experience. But this UI Builder is a brand new UI builder. The name is in what it does. It's a drag and drop capability. It allows you to make variants of pages. So if you want to add, a custom service portal page, maybe you want to add something to your agent workspace. Maybe you want to create just a separate portal used for whatever your mind can come up with. You see the next slide, Brian? UI Builder really enables you to do that. So if you remember back in the day in old school ServiceNow, they had a content management, your CSS, where you could build your pages and you can build content blocks. I like to think of this as that on steroids. It really allows you to pick your layouts, which are pre-built. It's running off of the whole bootstrap, so 12 across in total calculations. I won't bore you with that stuff, but the layout is fully customizable. You can drag and drop, if you can see the next slide, Brian, your actual components within these layouts. And these items can be resized. They can be styled to add any bolding or coloring or font changes. So it's really like building a web page or a UI interface, all within a new UI builder. It really gives a lot of great concepts. You can see the next slide. The great thing is that with the Now experience and the Now experience components, ServiceNow has made a separate site for these different types of components. And they can be specifically searched for the items that are available in the UI Builder. So it gives you things like examples. I think on the next slide, I have a couple of the examples on which they offer. So these are just a few. So whether you're adding an iframe or an input field, or maybe just a phone number or URL link, it gives you specific instructions on how to set that up within the UI Builder. And really follows along ServiceNow's new technologies of no code, low code, and pro code. So it really allows the user with no coding capabilities to come in and create something simple, while someone with pro code can come in and take that simple item and make it do amazing things. Next slide, I think, is the demonstration. So yeah, I'll go ahead and share here. All right. So Builder is a link within the Now Experience Framework application. Upon clicking this link, you'll be brought to your experience selection. Your experience is really the page or grouping of pages and so forth, but it's all under the term or the banner of experiences. So I do have a test experience that I've created. And what this is going to show you is just a basic layout with a one column. I can simply click these different columns to change the different layouts that I want. But I'm just going to stick to one layout here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a button. And I'm going to add content. I'm going to add a modal, and I'm going to add a confirmation. So I'm going to show you really quick just how quick and easy somebody can come in and set something up like a modal window to confirm information on, say, a form or something. So I will go ahead and on button 1, I'm going to go to my events. There's a button clicked event. So you click that, it brings up an event handler. You select the item. Again, you can get really deep into the code and have this do something where it's pulling in some predefined data code, but they have a lot of nice options here. So just open or close a modal dialog. I will select the modal window that I've created. It will open it, and I'll click add. Then when I'll come over to my modal window here, I'll click an event here for my primary button, and I want to say link to a destination. I can select my destination. I'll just add an external URL here, add in cdw.com, and add. So with about, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds, I guess, I've created already a page on which I can go to, take a look at, and really this is just a button. When I click the button, it gives me my modal window, which I can, again, modify this text quickly and easily in the UI builder. If I click yes, this will open up a page for me to go to cdw.com, which I probably already. Of course, it's a demo, live demo, so leave it to me to provide the item that didn't do what it was supposed to do. So
we'll probably have at least one more.
Yeah, exactly, right. So
Paul, will that be on the quiz?
Yeah. Well, I got 2 for you guys so far. So any questions on UI Builder?
Josh, Andrea, anything come in?
See anything on UI Builder? We do have a few more on the CSDM stuff. We'll talk about those at the end. We'll wrap those up.
Okay.
Just not to punch in the different sections.
So I just wanted to, before I pass it back over, I did want to also mention with UI Builder, as I mentioned, you can create some really in-depth lookups of data and bring back data and have them represented. You can really create your own ServiceNow. So I know this demo is just a small portion of what it can do, but there's really a lot that it can offer. I'm still even scratching the surface of it, but I can already see the potential of this to be able to create very unique user interfaces for customers to use, so that they can maybe provide information or give them a new user interface to be able to look up information, things like that. So a lot of great things with UI Builder I see coming down the pipe. All right. What's not supposed to hit stop share? All right, so after UI Builder, we have our Playbook Updates. So the Playbook updates, just a quick background, Playbooks are part of the ServiceNow App Engine. They leverage the process of the process automation designer that came out in Paris. And there's a couple of plugins that you need in order to enable your playbooks. But aside from that, Quebec has really offered some really great updates. We really wanted to highlight, playbooks as a whole and some of the, and just show you some of the features that have been updated in Quebec and that are in fact planned for Rome as well. So before we get into the demo, if you don't know what playbooks are, think of it as, a checklist of items that needs to be done on maybe an incident. So maybe you want to check if the customer is a VIP, or maybe you need to check if they have an outstanding balance. All these things can be synchronized in a playbook. So maybe you have a new hire or somebody who might be new to the department or who might not know what to do with an incident. You can simply add a playbook to that to assist that user. So in Quebec, it gives you just furthering on those advancements of being able to have the playbook, but now you can cancel a playbook if one isn't needed. You can manually trigger one. So as I mentioned, if you're a new hire and you're not sure what to do, let me check if there's a playbook on what to do, and give myself some instruction without having to call my boss for the 15th time today to ask another question. So you can have declarative actions to specify activity definitions and at the playbook and stage level. So you can have things happen automatically for you. There's a brand new playbook UI, as well as being able to map your states and add playbooks to any page with UI Builder. So that previous UI Builder that I showed, you can in fact add playbooks directly to that as well. As I mentioned, playbooks came out previous to Quebec, but there is an upgrade for playbooks to correctly work with the Quebec version. So again, there is a quick step and guide on how to do that. So if you have upgraded or need to upgrade to Quebec and are afraid that your playbooks are going to get broken, be sure to check out our slideshow for some information on how to prevent that.
Hey, Paul, really quick before you get into that a little bit more.
Yeah, sure.
In one or two sentences, just describe for those that may not know what Playbook is, kind of what it is and maybe what are the use cases?
Yeah, let me add a couple things there. So probably started initially in the security incident space in ServiceNow and customer service management. Those are both areas where you have scenarios where you want to make sure you follow a step-by-step process and really guide the analyst or support person through the right steps that you want to take. Security incident, you have a malware incident, you want to make sure you do all the right things, you block it, you can check this, you do that. So it really started in those two areas as being, let's make sure we make it easy for somebody to step through the right steps in that process. It's really documented in the playbook. A lot of times this was a binder or a Visio or things like that, and ServiceNow really made that something actionable. So those are a couple of use cases and where it started. What you're seeing here in the last couple of releases is really making it more part of the user interface in the platform overall, that you can put a playbook anywhere in the system. So when we get to the demo, we just created a real quick one that we could do on a regular incident that could maybe guide somebody through, hey, make sure you do the first couple things that you need to do consistently on an incident.
Yeah, that would definitely sum it up.
Just a quick question. I know we're probably going to get into this in the demo, but do the playbooks automate tasks or just list them out?
They can do both, yeah. And that's going back to some of the things that Paul was talking about, the new features, the declarative actions that you can do. There's a lot of things that you can basically define your own steps in the playbook. And this is all built on the process automation designer and the flow designer underneath that. So pretty much anything that you can do using flow designer, you can tag into a playbook, essentially.
Awesome, thank you guys.
Yeah, I think the demo is really gonna give you anybody who hasn't seen playbooks, really give you an understanding of what it can do. but you know, I'll add something later. I don't want to spoil it now, but I can see on how playbooks can really be very extensively used, almost creating a completely automated flow of how things should work. So all right, so back to the actual playbook updates. In Quebec, we are also including the add playbook button, so you can actually have an actual button within your, say, agent workspace, just to quickly and easily add a playbook from there, as well as you can view full lists within a playbook. So if you have, again, if you want to look for, you know, maybe all of their billing items are paid, you know, maybe you want to go down a list and check out the paid, you know, column or something like that. So being able to just see that data up front and for the user, as well as cancel a playbook. So again, so maybe you have a reasoning to allow for canceling of a playbook. Maybe you know, maybe the playbook was originally started because you wanted to know how to turn an incident into a change, and now we aren't going to be. We decided that, you know, it was resolved. It wasn't what we thought we needed, and we don't need the change. Maybe we're going to cancel the playbook. You know, just something as an example. And with that, I think we're going to go into the demonstration.
All right, you want to pass it back over?
Yes, sir. Stop here. There you go.
And while you're getting that set up, we had a couple more questions come in. Take this opportunity to get them answered. Can you compare and contrast the use of playbooks and knowledge articles?
Yeah, so I would say the difference, compare and contrast. The main difference is that a knowledge article is pretty static. So a knowledge article would be, go look at this information and this describes the step you need to take, whereas a playbook can help step you through that and can display knowledge as well. So part of it might be read this information and then go do this and, you know, actually fill out this field or whatever it may be. So that'll maybe become a little bit more clear as we drill into this a little bit more. So playbooks are built using the process automation designer that was added in Paris. So we basically just created a really quick little playbook for use in incident that basically says we're going to have 3 different stages of activities that we want to have happen when someone's running through this playbook. We want to categorize the incident, we want to respond to the caller, and we want to do some escalation. And then each of these cards describes the actions that happen during that playbook. So let me just run through what this looks like, and that'll probably answer some questions as well. So this is all using the agent workspace interface. So the playbooks show up as a tab essentially in the agent workspace. So you can have different triggering conditions. For example purposes here, I just created a really generic one. It's going to trigger on any incident that's created. You could have different playbooks that triggered for different types of incidents to guide them through that, for example. But let me just fill in a caller and a description. So the scenario here would be maybe, you know, instead of having this really long, you know, intensive, you know, interface for maybe entry-level support analysts, we want to make it really easy to step through the basics and kind of move the incident along to the next level support, for example, is maybe how that scenario could potentially be used. The example that we did here, as far as, you know, categorizing things, was just to provide a couple of quick little things that show up. And my developer instance here is a little on the slow side. There we go. So essentially the playbook shows up under the creatively named tab called Playbook. And you see here we've got the different stages that we defined. So we said in our process automation designer, we've got categorization, response, and escalation. So that's essentially what we see as the different stages in the playbook. So we've got here just a little bit of instruction saying, hey, it's important to identify the category. And then we give them a quick little card that says, you know, hey, fill out that information. So let's make sure we put our category in. We can optionally add some work notes here. So anything that we define as part of that card is essentially part of what we would then show the user as part of the playbook. So we finished the steps in that stage, and we've got another step here that basically just says, just did a quick little email for example purposes. So that basically fires the email off on the back end. And then our escalation here is, what assignment group does this want to go to? So we'll say that's Windows Server Support. So whatever we put in the playbook, it'll step the user through those different actions. And you can see we can still have other components as far as, they can see knowledge, agent assist, etc. Also part of the playbook, we can have conditional things. So here, if we had a VIP users, for example, we'd have an extra set of instructions that would show up if the caller happened to be a VIP. So just some different things that we can do in the playbook. Any questions on the playbook?
Yeah, we've got quite a bit. Is the SM playbook the same as what playbooks are in XOR?
In what?
Not sure. XOAR. XSOAR. XOR.
I'm not sure, no.
Not sure either. Perhaps we can get a little bit more information on what that is. And then the always pressing question, is there an additional subscription for Playbooks and Process Automation Designer?
It's part of the App Engine, so as long as you got entitlement to App Engine, then you should be able to use it.
All right. I'm assuming the Palo Alto XOR.
I would say similar. So
right.
In security incident, really anything that's security orchestration, automation, that was maybe what you're referring to there. It's playbooks in many cases tend to be very specific chunks of code. So similar idea that you're automating a step in the process. In ServiceNow, they tend to be a little bit more of an end-to-end. Here's the stages in the process, but similar, very similar idea. Yeah.
Yeah, and as we stated earlier too, this stemmed from that security incident response playbooks that's been in ServiceNow for quite a few releases, and it's just brought into the rest of the platform. So I can see how that definitely carries on from the security incident response side. Last one, do you need to have an ITIL license to utilize the playbook?
The playbooks could be used in multiple spots on the platform. So I would say if in the example that we showed of an incident playbook, yes, you'd be using an ITIL license, more because you're in the agent workspace in incident than that playbook specifically requires it. If you had a playbook in CSM, for example, you'd be using the CSM license. So not specifically because of the playbook, but just where the information is being used.
Right. So if you're creating one for an area where you need a license, yeah, you're going to need a license in that area for the playbook that you're creating. Yep. Perfect. I think that was it for the playbooks for right now. We'll circle back to some of the other questions that we haven't got to. Just know we will be answering them.
All right, moving on to Instant Scan. So this is an area that ServiceNow has added functionality within your own instance to help maintain the instance and the health of the instance. So this is, if you may have heard predecessors to this referred to as ACE reports or health scan. Those were both reports that ServiceNow could run on your instance. So you'd request them to run it, and then they'd give you the results, and they'd say, okay, here are some areas where you can make some changes to help improve the maintainability of your instance. The idea is really being able to look proactively at what your instance looks like, being able to identify areas that you can maybe do some changes to help either usability or security, or in terms of being able to prepare for upgrades. So really the problems that are trying to be solved by this are really trying to address cost of ownership issues, poor user experience, and difficulties upgrading. So these are essentially what ServiceNow is trying to address with the instance scan. The focus of this initial release is really in the areas of upgrades and security. So it's kind of a health scan light, if you will. So there's, all of these areas can be addressed in the health scan. This is part of their move to essentially make them available to you within your own instance, but really just focusing on around 100 types of definitions that it checks for within the upgrade and the security areas. So expect to see in upcoming releases that the definitions expand into the other areas. This will become more comprehensive as well. But talking about some of the different pieces, so we've got a check that is basically a definition that the scan is evaluating for. And the result of the scan would be a finding for this is something that's out of compliance. So if we're looking, for example, a check would be, don't use this sort of, make sure you're not using this sort of code. The finding would be, this particular business rule is using this bad code, for example. So it's an out of compliance occurrence. And you do this from running a scan. The scan basically runs all of the different checks and gives you a package back that you have the results. So the results is the parent record that shows all the checks that were run. The checks might have either been individual checks or checks that were part of a suite. And then you have all of the findings for those different checks. So this would be essentially an example of you can run that scan. So this is going to go through and do all of the definitions that were part of the scan. Your options are you can do this as a manual scan, scheduled, or a point scan. So a manual scan would be like the screenshot here where you're basically saying run the scan. It just happens because you run it. Scheduled scan, you can set it up to run, say, every night and review what had been done during the day, every couple weeks, every month, etc. The point scan would be you're on a specific record within the system, such as a business rule, for example, and you want to scan just that one business rule and see what the results are. The results show up on part of a dashboard where you can see these are the high, medium, low findings from that. And this is an example of that scan result where you can see here are the findings, all the different checks and suites that ran as part of this, etc. Give you a quick idea of what that looks like. So this is the instance scan dashboard. So it'll show you a history of the different scans that you've run here as well. So you can drill into these. So we've got critical, high, low findings. We can drill into that and see the individual results beyond that. So we can see here we've got a bunch that are basically we've got a publicly accessible knowledge base and articles. So maybe if you wanted to say, okay, let's just drill into that one area. Maybe we've got 50 findings there. What does one of those findings actually look like? So we've got the source table that it came from. So this was a particular knowledge article that triggered this finding. We've got a documentation URL where we can see some more details about addressing this and more details about what we're looking for and how you can resolve that. So on this individual finding, you could say, hey, we need to address this. You could create a task for somebody to address that particular issue, or you could mute it and say, we don't care about this particular one, for example. So it's not applicable. Maybe all of our knowledge articles are intended to be public so that anybody that's an external customer can view them. So that might be a reason that we say we don't care about this one. You could do a similar, in that case, for example, if you said we don't care about all of these ones, they're all low priority. You could also do say let's select all of the one for that category and mute all of them together. You could also disable that particular check. So if you said we don't care about the public knowledge base articles, you could go into the the check definition for that, and then just say we're just going to disable that. It's not going to run on the scans that we do as well. There's another dashboard that you can get to from an individual scan result. So this is a full scan.
Brian, as you're getting to that, really quick, a question came in. Really quick, a question came in. Are these instant scans available in FedRAMP as well?
I believe so. Yes, I think this is all done within your instance. So that's something that, as long as you're in the Quebec release, you can go ahead and run that.
And this is brand new to Quebec. Yes.
To Quebec, yes.
Got it. Thanks.
So we've got another scan results dashboard that shows you a little bit more, from a trending perspective, what you're seeing in those results over time. Category breakdown, so security, upgradability, the different products. So it might be different portions of the system and by developer as well. You can also, so you could kick off or schedule your scan from here. You can also create your own check definitions. So for example, you've got a couple different types of checks you could run. On a table check, you basically specify what table do you want to run on, what conditions do you want to see, et cetera. For time purposes, I probably won't run into that one, but pretty easy to go ahead and define the check that you're looking for here as well. Got other questions? We got just a couple minutes to wrap up here.
None more on the instant scan that we have. We have a few other questions that we'll follow back up on.
So just wrap up a couple things here, and then we can get to questions. So we had a very scientific poll that was just what are the different things that we think are the either the most wide-reaching or might have the most impact. So that was how we did our top 5. A couple of the runners-up were here. So there's some additional process optimization capabilities, a lot of functionality around DevOps, some Teams and Slack integration and integration in the PPM area, SecOps MITRE attack framework support. It's a pretty big change. Workforce optimization in CSM and just in general in the platform, and also CSM Engagement Manager were a couple of the runner-up here. And we've got a link here to just kind of the release notes to give you the full features that were added in the release as well. I'll go ahead and hand it over to John for a little bit of wrap up, and then we can
Sure.
take questions.
Yeah, perfect. I'm going to just take a minute here. A couple quick things to consider, right? You saw Brian look and share with us some of those new tools as far as general health scans and checks. Absolutely embrace that and get that as part of your normal course of action. You may also want to look at, especially if your system's older than a couple of years, there's a more deep dive of a ServiceNow configuration review or health check that can be done, and the amount of data and information it can turn up is incredible. So we do a lot of those for clients. And what we'll do is we'll layer over it a whole bunch of recommendations, everything from kind of low-hanging fruit of what can we clean up, where the technical debt might have impact down the road, and where some of that technical debt is probably okay, right? So those are the types of things we suggest all of our clients are looking at. And I think the longer you've had your system, the more important that is. And then number 2, continuous improvement plan. This series of events, the web sessions we're doing, you guys are all part of the first one. It is all about continuous improvement. How do we get more out of what we already own? And how do we create those near-term and long-term roadmaps that'll continually get us more value out of the platform? Not just when there's a big project to do, that's easy. Every 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, great big projects on ServiceNow bring new value. But what about getting more out of the system this week than we got out of it last week? So we're big on continuous improvement plans. We have programs that will help run those for you or augment your team on those. And you can certainly email me or reply to your invite, and we can get you more info. So wanted to thank everyone. We're going to do a few more questions here. And also, as we mentioned, the next session is being finalized from a date perspective. It's going to probably be early or middle June, and the topic, is absolutely around the CMDB section. I think we've got this very long topic we're going to try to whittle it down to, but it's called Overcoming Hurdles to a Healthy CMDB, why the CMDB is important, more important now than ever. And got a lot of good content coming your way. So I'm going to pause, pass it over to Josh and team. Are there any other questions in there that we might have a few more minutes here to try to work in?
Yeah, someone asked about
Scott.
when Quebec is going to be released. Quebec is available now, so you can certainly upgrade your instance now. And I believe Rome is slated for the second half of the year, right?
Correct. Yep. Yeah, we're actually past that, ever waiting for patch 2 of the Quebec release, which is what I always like to consider a go time for upgrading to the next release. So definitely on their way there to let everybody else figure out the bugs. Let's take advantage of those ones that have been cleaned up, right? So patch 2. We did have a couple other questions from the previous topics. I'll start at the beginning, CMDB, CSDM portion. What is the difference between managed by group and support group? Are there any recommendations or just up to the customer to decide what it means internally? I can take this one, guys. It really does matter what your org is calling them. This has actually been a long-standing debate with, ServiceNow defining those fields because it is really representative of how you treat them in your organization. So supporting and managing and assignment and all of those different fields, especially when it comes to CIs and things like that, could be a different meaning for each organization that's using them. So it really is just working through what do you want to use them for and how they're going to be assigned and things like that. So not really a definitive, yes, this and this and this, but we can definitely provide you examples of how they've been used. So use cases, which is always the extended, it depends, you have to give use cases for them, right? The second one is, so CSDM revolves around managed by group. Since implementation, we've used assignment group. This one also is, the managed by group at the class level is actually a newer feature. We never have been able to assign or put a group representation on the class. So how you're doing it today from an assignment group perspective is not the wrong way to do it. So again, it kind of goes back to that first question of what do we use and why do we do it? It depends on what you're doing. If you're doing auto assignment rules based on the assignment group for a CI, keep it that way because that's definitely been the best practice. So anything to add to those two topics, guys?
Probably just one additional point, that part of what their ServiceNow is doing with the common service data model is they're trying to provide more and more examples. You mentioned use cases. So as part of the documentation they're providing, they're trying to say, okay, here's what a particular use case, what the service might look like. So they're trying to provide more and more examples to really help people understand how they can do some things too. So.
Great. Yeah, and then the spoiler with that new, the next webinar, definitely going to be talking about that as well. And hopefully by then we have some inkling of the CSDM 4.0 because that's an ever continuing evolution. Next question on the UI builder. I saw a live CSS code editor while using the drag and drop interface. Is there a code editor for JavaScript for the buttons, etc.?
Yeah, I believe there is. You can set up search sources. You can have dynamic data binding, so you can actually bind data to buttons, things like that, or any of the appropriate components that are listed on the page.
Perfect.
I think we queue up the quiz now, right?
Yeah, that's the quiz, and we've got 1 minute, so get ready. No, the last question we have is this presentation available to download? Andrew, do you want to comment about the after takeaways?
Sure. We will definitely be sending the recording as well as the presentation and possibly some other resources, but that's going to go out as soon as the recording is ready. So that's usually within 24 hours of the webinar.
Thanks, Andrea. And I'll just wrap up by saying, we're also going to reach out and look for feedback, right? What you thought about the session, what could have made it better, which parts of it, you felt that we should make sure we continue to do. And then on a topic perspective, we kind of know what our next one's going to be, but we're also really eager to hear from the group here. What other topics would you like us to work on in the months ahead? So thanks so much, and thanks for this opportunity for CDW to share with you a bit about our ServiceNow expertise and anything we can do to help you at all. Just give us a call, shoot me a note, reply on the invite. Andrea, I will make sure you get to the right person. And thank you again for great interaction, great questions, and we'll get copies of the presentation out to all of you. Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks, everybody. See you on
Thanks,
the
all.
next one.
Bye-bye.